The rain came down hard that afternoon, harder than anyone in Brookhaven had seen in years. It wasn't the gentle kind that taps on windows and lulls you to sleep. This was the kind that stung your skin, turned sidewalks into rivers, and made umbrellas flip inside out like they'd given up. School had just let out, and students rushed for buses, cars, or any patch of cover they could find. Most had hoods pulled tight, backpacks clutched to their chests, eyes fixed on the ground to avoid puddles that were already knee-deep in places. One teenager stood near the edge of the bus stop, soaked from head to toe. She'd forgotten her raincoat that morning, rushed out the door after helping her little brother find his missing shoe, and now she was paying for it. Her dark hair clung to her cheeks, her jeans were heavy with water, and her sneakers squished with every slight shift in place. She didn't complain, though. She just watched the street, waiting for the number 14 bus that always came 10 minutes late on rainy days. She held a small, slightly bent umbrella, pink with a chipped handle, that barely covered her shoulders. It had been a birthday gift from her grandmother 2 years ago, and even though it leaked a little near the seam, she refused to throw it away. "It still works," she'd say whenever her mom suggested buying a new one. As she waited, her eyes caught movement down the block. An older woman, probably in her late 70s, was struggling to cross the street. She wore a thin beige coat that offered no real protection from the downpour, and in one hand she gripped a flimsy grocery bag that was already tearing at the bottom. In the other she held a cane, tapping it carefully against the wet pavement. Every step looked like effort. Her shoulders were hunched, her head low, and her white hair was plastered to her forehead. The teen didn't think. She just moved. She stepped off the curb, ignoring the cold water rushing over her shoes, and hurried toward the woman. Cars slowed as they passed, their headlights cutting through the gray afternoon. When she reached the woman, she held the umbrella over both of them without a word. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes wide behind rain-speckled glasses. Oh my," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You didn't have to do that, dear." "I know," the teen replied with a small smile. "But I wanted to." She adjusted the umbrella so it covered the woman better, even though that meant more rain hit her own back. Together, they walked slowly down the street, past the shuttered bakery, the laundromat with its flickering sign, and the little park where kids usually played after school, now empty except for puddles and drifting leaves. The woman introduced herself as Eleanor. She'd lived in Brookhaven her whole life, taught English at the high school decades ago, and now lived alone since her husband passed. She talked gently as they walked, not about herself, but about the teen, asking how school was, if she liked her teachers, whether she had big plans after graduation. The teen answered honestly but quietly, more focused on making sure Eleanor didn't slip on the slick sidewalk. When they reached a small, well-kept house with a red front door and flower boxes, now overflowing with rainwater, Eleanor stopped and turned. "This is me," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. You have no idea what this meant." The teen just nodded. "It's okay. Really." Eleanor reached into her grocery bag, pulled out a slightly soggy apple, and pressed it into the girl's hand. "Take this, for your kindness." The teen hesitated, then accepted it with a quiet, "Thanks." She watched as Eleanor fumbled with her keys, opened the door, and disappeared inside. Only then did she turn and start walking back toward the bus stop, now even wetter than before, but somehow lighter, too. What she didn't know was that someone had seen the whole thing. From an upstairs window across the street, a neighbor had been watching the storm roll in when she spotted the teen sharing her umbrella. She'd grabbed her phone, snapped a quick blurry photo through the rain-streaked glass, just a silhouette of two figures under one small pink umbrella, walking side by side in the middle of the storm. On a whim, she posted it to the Brookhaven community group on Facebook with a simple caption, "Saw this today. Our kids are still good." She didn't tag anyone. She didn't even know the teen's name. But within an hour, the post had dozens of likes. Someone commented, "That's Mrs. Hayes' house. She lives alone now." Another wrote, "I know that umbrella. My daughter goes to school with that girl." Soon, people were sharing stories of their own, times they'd been helped by a stranger, moments they'd witnessed quiet courage in everyday places. By evening, the post had been shared over 200 times. Local parents, teachers, even the owner of the corner diner recognized Mrs. Hayes and began piecing together who the teen might be. One of the school's crossing guards mentioned seeing her waiting for the number 14 bus every day. A librarian remembered her returning books early, always with a polite thank you. Slowly, without fanfare or intention, the story of a simple act, just one kid sharing an umbrella on a rainy day, began to spread through the town like warmth on a cold night. Back at home, the teen had no idea any of this was happening. She'd changed into dry clothes, heated up leftover soup for dinner, and helped her younger brother with his math homework. When her mom asked how her day was, she just shrugged and said, "Fine, rainy." She didn't mention the umbrella. She didn't mention Eleanor. She didn't think it was anything special, just something anyone would have done. But in a world that often feels loud, rushed, and disconnected, sometimes the quietest gestures echo the loudest. And that small pink umbrella, bent and leaking but still held high over someone else, became a symbol the whole town needed, without even knowing it yet. The next morning started like any other. The teen woke up to the sound of her little brother banging on the bathroom door, the smell of toast burning slightly in the kitchen, and the distant hum of school buses rolling down the street. The rain had stopped overnight, leaving behind a cool, damp stillness that clung to the sidewalks and made the air smell like wet earth and old leaves. She pulled on her uniform, grabbed her backpack, and walked to school with her hood up, not because it was raining, but because she liked the quiet it gave her, like a little bubble between her and the world. She didn't check her phone much before school. She never had time, but if she had, she might have seen the messages piling up from classmates, the comments on the community page, the way her face, well, not her face exactly, just the back of her head under that pink umbrella, had become the center of a quiet storm of its own. At school, things felt off. People kept glancing at her in the hallway, not in a mean way, but like they were trying to place her, like she'd suddenly become a puzzle they needed to solve. A group of girls near her locker stopped talking when she walked by. A boy she barely knew gave her a thumbs up in the cafeteria line. She frowned, confused, and chalked it up to some rumor she hadn't heard yet. Maybe someone thought she'd aced the chemistry test, or maybe they'd heard she was quitting the school paper. She didn't worry about it. She had a history quiz and a lab report due, and that was enough to fill her mind. What she didn't know was that earlier that morning, the woman from the rain, Eleanor, had called the school office. Her voice had been soft but clear as she asked to speak to the principal. She didn't want anything special, she said, just to thank a student. She described the girl, dark hair, about 16, wore a navy blue jacket, waited for the number 14 bus, and had shared her umbrella without being asked. The principal, a man who'd worked in education for over 30 years and had seen everything from cafeteria food fights to science fair explosions, was genuinely moved. He remembered Eleanor. She'd taught at this very school back in the 80s. Kind, strict in the best way, the kind of teacher kids wrote thank you notes to decades later. If she was calling to thank someone, it mattered. So during third period, just after the morning announcements usually ended with a reminder about the lost and found, the principal's voice came over the speakers again, unexpectedly. "There's something I'd like to share with all of you," he said, his tone warmer than usual. "Yesterday, in the middle of that terrible storm, one of our students saw a neighbor in need and didn't hesitate to help. She walked an elderly woman home under her own small umbrella, even though it meant getting soaked herself. She didn't ask for thanks. She didn't post about it. She just did what was right." He paused. "That's the kind of heart we hope to grow here. Not just smart minds, but kind ones." A hush fell over the school. In classrooms, students turned to each other, whispering. In the library, a few looked toward the windows as if expecting to see the girl walking by. And in a biology classroom on the second floor, the teen froze, her pencil hovering over her notebook. Her face went warm. She knew it was her. By lunchtime, it was impossible to ignore. Friends crowded around her table not to gossip, but to say things like, "That was you? And I saw the photo, it was so sweet." One girl hugged her and said, "My grandma lives alone too. It made me cry." The teen didn't know what to say. She just nodded, picked at her sandwich, and wished the ground would swallow her whole. She didn't want to be a story. She just wanted to be herself. But outside the school walls, something bigger was happening. Word had spread beyond the community Facebook group. A local news reporter, scrolling through posts during her morning coffee, saw the photo and the growing comments. She called Eleanor, then the school, then a few neighbors. By noon, a short segment was being prepared for the evening news. Teen's simple act of kindness inspires a town. And then came the cars. The teen didn't notice them at first. She was packing her bag slowly, dreading the walk to the bus stop, half hoping no one would talk to her. But when she stepped outside the front doors, she stopped dead. The street in front of the school, usually quiet after dismissal, with just a few parents and buses, was lined with vehicles. Not dozens. Not at first glance. But as she looked down the block, she saw more. And more. Pickup trucks with muddy tires, minivans with soccer stickers on the back, a shiny black sedan, even the old fire chief's SUV parked crookedly near the crosswalk. Dozens of cars, maybe 40, maybe more. Some drivers leaned out their windows, smiling. Others just sat quietly, engines idling. A few held signs taped to their windshields. Thank you. Kindness changes everything, we see you. One had a hand-drawn umbrella with a heart inside it. Her mom's car was there too, parked near the curb, but even she looked surprised. Standing beside it with her arms crossed, eyes wide, the teen stood there frozen, her backpack slipping off one shoulder. Her heart pounded like she'd run a mile. She wasn't scared, just overwhelmed. This wasn't what she expected. This wasn't what she wanted. Her mom walked over, put a hand on her arm. I didn't know they were coming, she said softly. They just showed up. Why? The teen whispered. Because you reminded them how to be human, her mom said, voice thick. One by one, people got out of their cars, not to swarm her, not to take photos, just to say thank you. A man in a mechanic's uniform told her his daughter had been talking about her all afternoon. A woman with tired eyes said she'd been having a really hard week, and seeing the story gave her hope. The owner of the corner bakery handed her a box of still warm cookies. For you and your family, he said. No charge, no one asked for a selfie. No one shouted or made a scene. It was quiet, respectful, real. As she walked to her mom's car, clutching the cookie box and her soggy umbrella from the day before, now safely tucked in her bag, she kept her eyes down. But she could feel it, the warmth in the air, the kindness in every nod. The way strangers looked at her, not like she was famous, but like she was one of them. Back in the car, her little brother, who'd been waiting patiently in the back seat, looked up from his book. Are you a hero now? He asked, half joking. She laughed, a real laugh, shaky but true. No, she said. I'm just me. But as they drove home, passing rows of houses with porch lights flickering on in the early dusk, she realized something. Maybe being just me was enough. Maybe it was more than enough, and though she didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning. The town wasn't done showing up, and neither was she. A week had passed since the cars lined the street outside the school and life hadn't gone back to normal, not really. It wasn't that anything huge had changed. The teen still woke up to her brother's morning chaos, still burned toast when she tried to multitask, still got nervous before pop quizzes. But now, everywhere she went, people looked at her differently. Not with suspicion or judgment, but with something softer. Gratitude, maybe, or quiet admiration. And that, she found, was almost harder to carry than anger or indifference. At first, the attention felt nice. Teachers smiled a little wider when she walked into class. Kids she'd never spoken to said hello in the hallway. Even the lunch lady gave her an extra cookie once, winking as she slid the tray across the counter. But soon the weight of it started to press down. She caught herself second-guessing everything. Did she sound rude when she asked for a pencil? Was it selfish to keep her headphones on during study hall? What if someone saw her roll her eyes at a dumb joke and thought, she's not so kind after all? She hadn't signed up to be a symbol. She'd just held an umbrella. Then the news crews came. It started with a local station, just a reporter and a camera person, standing outside the school with a microphone. They wanted to interview her. Just 5 minutes, they said. Tell us what inspired you. She politely declined. Her mom backed her up, saying, she's just a kid. She doesn't want this. The reporter nodded, respectful, and left, but word traveled. Another station called the house. Then a radio show asked if she'd do a live call-in. A national morning program even sent an email through the school, offering to fly her and her family to New York for a segment. We'll make it easy, they wrote. Just share your story. She read that email once, then deleted it without showing anyone. The idea of standing on a bright stage talking about kindness like it was a performance made her stomach twist. Kindness wasn't meant to be packaged and sold. It wasn't a product. It was something you did when no one was watching, like holding an umbrella for a stranger in the rain. Still, the town kept giving. Donations started showing up at the school office. Envelopes with cash, checks made out to the Kindness Fund, boxes of winter coats, backpacks filled with school supplies. Someone even donated a used laptop for students who couldn't afford one. The principal, touched and a little overwhelmed, called a meeting with teachers and parents. They decided to create an actual fund, small, simple, run by students and staff, to help kids in need with bus passes, meals, or emergency supplies. They named it quietly, without fanfare, the Brookhaven Care Fund. And though they never said it out loud, everyone knew it existed because of her. She didn't ask for any of it. But she couldn't ignore it either. One afternoon, while shelving books in the library, she volunteered twice a week, a freshman girl approached her, eyes red from crying. "My mom lost her job," the girl whispered. "I don't know how I'll pay for the field trip next month." The teen didn't hesitate. She walked with her to the counselor's office, helped her fill out a form for the new fund, and stayed until the girl smiled, just a little. That moment felt more real than any news headline, but not everyone was kind. Late one night, while scrolling through her phone, something she rarely did but curiosity got the better of her, she stumbled on a comment thread under a news article about her. Most comments were sweet. "We need more like her, restores my faith in teens." But a few stung. "Probably did it for attention," one said. "Bet she's loving all the free stuff now." Another, "Why's everyone making a big deal? It was just an umbrella." She closed the app fast, her chest tight. She hadn't expected everyone to understand. But it hurt just a little to be reduced to a headline, to have her quiet moment twisted into something performative. Her mom noticed she was quieter than usual at dinner. "You okay?" she asked, stirring a pot of soup. The teen shrugged. "Some people think I did it for show." Her mom turned off the stove and sat down across from her. "You know what matters?" she said gently. "Not what strangers think. Not what's online. What matters is what you know in here." She tapped her chest. "You know why you did it. That's enough." The teen nodded, but it took her a few days to really believe it. Then came the school assembly. The principal announced a special gathering to talk about community and care. He didn't mention her by name, but everyone knew. When he spoke about small acts creating big ripples, heads turned in her direction. She kept her eyes on her shoes. But then he did something unexpected. He invited students to share their own stories. Not about her, but about times they'd helped someone or been helped. A boy talked about carrying groceries for his elderly neighbor every Sunday. A girl shared how a classmate stayed with her when she got sick during gym. Another student described tutoring his little sister in math, even though he struggled with it himself. One by one, ordinary moments filled the auditorium. No cameras, no applause, just truth. And in that room, the teen finally felt like she could breathe again. She wasn't alone. She wasn't a hero. She was just part of something bigger, a web of people trying, failing, trying again to be good to each other. After the assembly, she walked outside and saw Eleanor sitting on a bench near the front gate, bundled in a thick coat despite the mild weather. She waved. The teen hurried over. "I heard about the fund," Eleanor said, her eyes bright. "You didn't have to do that." "I didn't do it," the teen said. "Everyone did," Eleanor smiled. "You started the spark. That counts." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching students leave school, laughing, shoving each other playfully, living their ordinary, beautiful lives. Later that week, the teen made a decision. She wrote a short note to the local paper, not for fame, but for clarity. "I'm just a regular student," it read. "I shared an umbrella because it was raining, and someone needed help. That's all. But if this story made even one person choose kindness today, then it was worth it." She didn't sign it with her name. Just a student at Brookhaven High. The paper printed it the next day. No photo, no follow-up. Just those words tucked between the weather forecast and the grocery ads. And for the first time in days, she slept through the night. No dreams of cameras, no fear of being misunderstood. Just peace. Because kindness, she was learning, wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, even when you're tired, even when no one's watching, even when the world gets loud. And that was something she could live with. The pressure didn't go away, it just changed shape. At first it was the stares, the whispers, the feeling that everyone expected her to be perfect. Now it was quieter, deeper. It lived in the back of her mind like a low hum, reminding her that people were watching, even when they weren't. She'd catch herself holding back a frustrated sigh in class or biting her tongue when someone cut in line, not because she was naturally patient, but because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. She didn't want to be the girl who shared her umbrella one day and snapped at a friend the next. But she was still human, and humans aren't perfect. One Tuesday, after a long week of pop quizzes, late night studying, and her brother spilling juice all over her history notes, she lost her temper. It wasn't dramatic, just a sharp seriously, when a classmate kept tapping their pencil during a quiet reading period. The room went still for half a second. Then the tapping stopped. But the look on the other student's face, the flicker of surprise, maybe even hurt, stuck with her all afternoon. Later, walking home, she replayed it in her head. Why couldn't I just stay calm? Now they think I'm fake. She kicked a pebble down the sidewalk, her chest tight. She hadn't asked to be held to a higher standard. She just wanted to be herself. Messy, tired, sometimes impatient, but trying. That evening, she called Eleanor. She didn't plan to. She just found herself dialing the number she'd saved weeks ago, her fingers moving before her brain caught up. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her voice warm and steady like always. "Hello, dear," she said. "I was just thinking about you." The teen didn't know where to start, so she just said it. "I yelled at someone today." There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. "Oh, sweetheart, good." "Good?" she asked, confused. "Yes," Eleanor said, "because that means you're real." They talked for nearly an hour. Eleanor told her about her first year teaching, how she'd cried in the staff bathroom after losing her temper with a student who wouldn't stop talking. "I thought I'd failed," she said, "but the next day I apologized. And that student? He worked harder than anyone in the class after that. Not because I was perfect, but because I was honest." The teen sat on her bedroom floor, knees pulled to her chest, listening. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she had to carry this invisible weight alone. Before hanging up, Eleanor said something that stayed with her. Kindness isn't about never getting angry. It's about choosing to care, even when you're tired, even when you mess up. You don't have to be a statue. You just have to show up. Those words settled in her like sunlight after rain. The next day at school, instead of hiding in the library during lunch, she walked into the student council room. She'd never been part of it before, too shy, too busy, but today she had an idea. What if we did something? "Small?" she asked the group, her voice a little shaky at first. "Not about me, about everyone. A week where we do kind things, but no one knows who did them." The room lit up. Someone suggested leaving encouraging notes in lockers. Another proposed paying for someone's lunch anonymously. A quiet boy in the back said, "What if we help clean up the park after school? Just show up, do it, leave." They called it Random Acts Week, no cameras, no names, just actions. The principal loved it. Teachers agreed to let students sign up during homeroom. Flyers went up, but they didn't mention the umbrella story. They just said, "This week be someone's quiet light," and the town responded. On Monday, every teacher found a handwritten thank you note on their desk. Tuesday, the bus driver got a thermos of hot chocolate with a note. "Thanks for getting us home safe." Wednesday, the school custodian walked into the gym to find it spotless. Floors mopped, trash emptied, basketballs neatly stacked, though no one claimed it. Thursday, someone left a box of new socks and gloves in the front office with a label, "For anyone who needs them." The teen didn't do all of it herself. She helped organize, yes, but most of the work came from dozens of students, each choosing their own small way to give. And that was the point. Kindness wasn't hers alone to carry. It belonged to everyone, even her little brother got involved. He drew a picture of a smiling sun with the words, "You matter," and slipped it into a neighbor's mailbox. When he told her, beaming, she hugged him so tight he squeaked. By Friday, the energy in the school had shifted. Not because of one person, but because of many. Hallways felt lighter. Smiles came easier. Even the lunch line moved faster. Because people were holding doors, saying after you, sharing extra napkins without being asked. That afternoon, as she walked past the front office, she saw a stack of letters addressed to the school. Not complaints. Not requests. Just notes. Saw someone pick up trash on Main Street, thank you. My daughter came home smiling because someone shared their snack. I'm new here, and this week made me feel welcome. She didn't read them all. She didn't need to. She could feel the change in the air. That weekend she visited Eleanor again. They sat on the porch with mugs of tea, watching birds hop between branches. No umbrella this time, just clear sky and quiet company. You started something beautiful, Eleanor said. I didn't start it, the teen replied. I just reminded people it was already there. Eleanor smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Sometimes that's the hardest part, remembering. Back at school on Monday, Random Acts Week was over. But the habits remained. A student held the door for a teacher carrying books. Someone picked up a dropped pencil and handed it back. In the cafeteria, a group saved a seat for a kid who usually ate alone. The teen didn't get thanked. No cars gathered. No news crews showed up. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Because she finally understood real kindness doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need a name. It just needs to happen again and again, quietly, stubbornly, like rain on a dry road. And she was just one person in a town full of them, trying, stumbling, getting back up and choosing to care. That was enough. More than enough. And for the first time since that rainy afternoon, she felt free, not from kindness but within it. Spring came softly to Brookhaven, the way it always did, first in the crocuses pushing through damp soil, then in the longer afternoons that smelled like cut grass and open windows. The rain that had started it all felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been a few months. The teen walked to school most days now without a jacket, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her steps easy. She still waited at the same bus stop, though she rarely took the bus anymore. Her mom usually picked her up after tutoring or club meetings. Life had settled back into rhythm, but it wasn't the same rhythm as before. Something had shifted, not just in her but in the whole town. She didn't see herself as a leader or a symbol anymore. She was just part of the fabric now. Teachers asked her opinion on student initiatives. New kids were quietly shown around by classmates who remembered how it felt to be alone. The Brookhaven Care Fund was still going, small, steady, helping a student replace lost glasses, covering a field trip fee, buying winter coats before the cold returned. No one made a big deal of it. They just did what needed doing. One afternoon in late April, she was walking home from the library, books tucked under her arm, when the sky darkened without warning. Not a storm, just one of those quick spring showers that sweep in, drench everything, and vanish before you've finished complaining. Raindrops hit her shoulders, cool and sudden. She sighed, glancing around for cover, but the nearest awning was half a block away. Then from behind her, a voice. Hey, wait up! She turned. A younger student, maybe 7th grade, small for their age, was hurrying toward her, holding a bright blue umbrella. Without a word, the kid held it out, angling it so it covered them both. The teen blinked. You don't have to do that, she said gently. I know, the kid replied, echoing words she herself had spoken months ago. But I wanted to. They walked together in silence for a few steps, rain pattering on the taut fabric above them. The teen looked down at the kid's face, earnest, calm, completely unaware of the circle they'd just closed. No phone was pulled out. No one took a photo. There was no crowd waiting at the end of the block. Just two people sharing space under one umbrella, keeping each other dry. When they reached the corner where their paths split, the kid handed her the umbrella. You can keep it if you want. I've got another at home, she smiled. Thanks, but I think you should hold on to it. Someone else might need it tomorrow. The kid nodded, tucked the umbrella under their arm, and jogged off toward a waiting parent's car, waving once before disappearing inside. The teen stood there for a moment, watching the car drive away, rain still falling lightly around her. She didn't feel special. She didn't feel famous. She just felt connected. Like she was part of something quiet and strong that didn't need headlines to matter. Back at school the next week, she noticed something new. A teacher had written on the whiteboard in the main hallway, "Pass the umbrella." Below it, students had started adding their own notes. Helped my neighbor carry groceries. Let someone go ahead of me in line. Listened when my friend needed to talk. It wasn't an assignment. It wasn't graded. It was just there, a living reminder that kindness wasn't a single act but a habit, passed hand to hand like a borrowed pen or a shared snack. Even the local diner got in on it. On rainy days, they kept a basket of cheap umbrellas by the door with a sign, "Take one if you need it, leave one if you can." Half the town had used it at least once. No one tracked who took or gave. They just trusted each other to keep the chain going. The teen never sought out the spotlight again. When graduation neared, a reporter asked if she'd reflect on how her life had changed since the umbrella moment. She declined politely. "It wasn't about me," she said. "It was about what we all decided to do after." And that was the truth. Years later, long after she'd left Brookhaven for college, people still talked about that rainy day, not because of her, but because of what it sparked. New students heard the story during orientation, not as legend, but as invitation. This is who we try to be. The Care Fund grew. Random Acts Week became a tradition. And on the first rainy day of every school year, someone, always someone different, would stand near the bus stop with an extra umbrella just in case. She never knew who they were. And she didn't need to. One summer, she came back to visit. She walked past the old school, now with a new wing and a mural on the side depicting hands passing a glowing umbrella. She smiled but didn't stop. She went to see Eleanor, who was slower now, her hands trembling a little but her eyes still sharp and kind. They sat on the porch with iced tea, watching fireflies blink on in the dusk. "You did good, you know," Eleanor said, not looking at her. "Just at the trees, I didn't do anything," the teen, now a young adult, replied. Eleanor chuckled. "You showed up. That's the hardest part." On her last day in town, she stopped by the bus stop one more time. It was empty, just a bench and a faded sign. She sat for a minute, remembering the cold rain, the weight of the grocery bag, the quiet walk home. Then she stood, brushed off her jeans, and walked toward the house where her mom waited with dinner on the stove, and her brother ready to argue over the TV remote. Nothing grand, nothing dramatic, just life, lived kindly. One ordinary moment at a time, and somewhere in another town, another kid was probably sharing their umbrella with a stranger, not knowing they were part of a chain that started with a simple choice on a rainy afternoon in Brookhaven. That was the real legacy. Not fame, not praise, but the quiet certainty that goodness, once planted, keeps growing, even when no one's watching. There was no part 6 in the original request. The story was outlined and written as a complete 5-part arc, beginning with a quiet act of kindness and ending with its quiet, lasting ripple through a community. The journey was always meant to close where it began. Not with fanfare, but with the everyday courage of ordinary people choosing to care. However, if you'd like to extend the story beyond its natural conclusion, perhaps to explore how the teen's actions influenced the next generation, or how the spirit of passing the umbrella traveled beyond Brookhaven, I'd be glad to write that as a new, separate continuation. Just let me know. For now, the story stands whole in 5 parts, each grounded in realism, human emotion, and the kind of kindness that doesn't need a spotlight to matter.